I think for sustainable growth and social well-being, I'm an economist, and I think it is very important for the tax compliance. In many Asian countries, tax evasion is prevailing. And some businesses and individuals has huge amount of income. However, tax is not well being provided. So I think that tax compliance, looking at income tax, corporate tax, property tax, and sales tax is very important. Then identification number of individuals and companies will also important. And also the quality of tax authority is also important. And number 3 is a progressive tax rate will mitigate disparity of the income distribution. And international coordination of tax rules will be important. If only Thailand applies progressive tax rate, then many rich people move from Thailand to Singapore or other countries. So in Southeast Asia as a whole, I think the international coordination of tax is very important. And tax system will equalize the income, and also the tax revenue can mitigate those weak people and social welfare for handicapped people and so on. So I think the tax is a very important issue in Asia. And secondly, infrastructure investment is also important. In Bangkok, gradually a good infrastructure has been constructed. Railways and also sky trains and buses and so on. However, in rural region, infrastructure is lacking. Then small businesses and agricultural farmers cannot fully utilize their products because they cannot access to good transportation system and delivery system. And infrastructure finance is very important. And spillover effects of infrastructure, which means infrastructure can bring businesses and also production into the region and employment. And private participation in infrastructure finance is very important. In Thailand, insurance is growing. So not only people are depositing into banks, but also insurance are growing. And Thailand has to prepare for old age, establishing good pension system. Then if insurance and pension funds are long-term investors, and they are very appropriate to invest into infrastructure. And Asian bond market was not grown very much in the past 20 years because we didn't have insurance pension funds, which is called institutional investors, who invest into long-term financial market. However, many Asian countries are gradually developing insurance and pension funds. So infrastructure is a very good way to invest into. However, Thailand had experienced very bad experience on PPP, public-private partnership. When the crisis hit, all the private companies, private financial companies, moved away from Thailand because their rate of return had been diminished drastically. In the past, infrastructure only relied on user charges, highway tolls, and so on. However, infrastructure can bring huge spillover effects into the region, so the tax revenues in those regions will increase. If those spillover tax revenues can be partly returned to the investors, rate of return on infrastructure will become much, much bigger, so insurance and pension funds will have better rate of return. And not only infrastructure, but education is very important into the region. Very qualified workers in the factories can input and produce much higher productivity. So not only infrastructure, but also education is very important. And infrastructure can access to market and access to people. Last one is SME and agricultural sector. Thailand is dominated by small and medium-sized enterprises and agricultural farmers. But access to finance is very difficult. And farmers want to modernize their machinery. Then they need finance to purchase lots of tractors and so on. But finance SMEs and agricultural farmers has to go to finance companies or money lenders. So they are charged very high rate of interest. So I think it is very important for the regulation of these shadow banks or hidden banks to those SMEs and agricultural farmers. And recently, big data analysis had been applied to Thailand. And this big data analysis will allow banks can make credit rating for SME. So this is the example of the Thailand data, which Thailand National Credit Bureau and ADB Institute had jointly organized this analysis. So as you can see here, the SME in Thailand has 3 groups based on the data. So these are very good SME, risky SME, and in between. Then this big data analysis allows banks can lend money to this sector, which is very safe. Then in these risky groups, they have to ask higher collateral and higher rate of return. So I think it is very important to look at the big data analysis, and that can be applicable not only advanced nations, but also Thailand. And then startup businesses can be financed by crowdfunding and hometown investment trust funds. So I think the social well-being is very important, and we have to look at the tax system, infrastructure, and SME and agricultural farmers. Then their well-being will be enhanced, and government policy together with private sector participation will be very important. Thank you.